Bhadram karnebhi shrunuyama deva Bhadram pashyemakshabhirya jatra Sthirairangai stuštuvagum sastanubhihi Vyashema devahitam yadayuh Swasti na indro vriddhashravaha Swasti na pusha vishwavedaha Swasti nastarksho arishtanemihi Swasti no brihaspatir dadhatu Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Yes. So, we are on the 4th chapter, and just to catch up on what has been happening, just a minute. Yes, just to catch up on what has been happening, Gaudapada has been dealing with a number of opponents to his non-dualistic philosophy, and the last one he tackled was the Buddhist subjective idealist, Buddhist Vignavadi. You know, the one who thought that everything is within consciousness. So he used the arguments of that Buddhist to defeat the other Buddhists who think that there is a world outside of consciousness. So that realist approach is refuted by using the arguments of the subjective idealist. And then finally, in verse number 28, chapter 4, verse number 28, I think this is where we stopped last time. So there he now refutes the Buddhist idealist directly. The only difference, the major difference between the Buddhist idealist and the Advaita, Gaudapada's own position, is this. Gaudapada also considers everything to be within consciousness, and the Buddhist idealist also considers everything to be internal or within consciousness. There is no external reality. So why would Gaudapada want to refute the Buddhist idealist, the Vignanavadin? Because the Buddhist idealist considers consciousness to be momentary, arising and then dying, and then another consciousness, momentary, moment to moment flashes of consciousness are coming and going. And that they think is the correct description of reality. And in each flash of consciousness is the content of that consciousness. So this is what we talked about last time. I think we talked about some of the arguments against it. Basically, in the 28th verse, Gaudapada says that consciousness is not born. O Buddhist, you are saying that consciousness is born and dying moment to moment. Every moment consciousness is born and it dies, and next moment a new consciousness comes up again. No, that is not true, because origination, being caused, the causality itself is illogical, which we have already seen. There are multiple reasons why consciousness cannot be born, cannot change, and cannot die. Let's look at the verse number 28, which is, I think, where we stopped last time. Tasman na jayate chittam chittadrishyam na jayate tasya pashyanti ye jatim Khevai pashyanti te padam. So consciousness has no birth, and things perceived by it also are not born. Those who perceive the birth of consciousness may as well see footmarks in space itself. Basically, what did he say? Just say that what we perceive in consciousness, what we experience. What do we experience? Everything. Everything in our waking states and everything in our dreams are all seen in consciousness. And those things are not born. How do we know? All the old arguments which we have seen earlier. Things cannot be born of themselves, things cannot be born of something else, things cannot be born of reality, things cannot be born of the unreal, and so on. All those arguments, nothing external is born at all. Then what is being said? What are all these things then? What you see in waking state, what we see in the dream state, what are they then? They are all appearances in consciousness. They are not something separate from consciousness. That was established. And in this verse, what he is saying is, consciousness itself is also not born. The question does not arise that consciousness, what you are saying, O Buddhist subjectivist, that consciousness is born and dying moment to moment, that's impossible for reasons stated last time and earlier also. And those who think that consciousness is born and it dies, try to understand consciousness in that way. He uses a sort of exotic example here. Might as well try to catch hold of the footprints of the birds in the sky, which means it's impossible. All right. We'll move on now. Verse number 29. So what's going to happen now? So from verse number 29 to verse number 46, what's going to happen is Gaudapada is going to restate his conclusions, the teachings of Advaita which he did in chapter 2 and chapter 3. The whole thing he will restate in his own fashion, which is basically always an attack on causality, that the effects are never born, so there is no cause and effect. The reality is Turiam, the pure consciousness. So this thing will be taught from verse number 29 to verse number 46 with the help of examples, and you will see many of those things we have come across earlier, especially in chapter 2, Vaitatya Prakaran, a long time ago. So what I will do is, I will speak at length. I'll take up each of these verses one by one, translate it, and then explain it and move on. Halfway through, I'll stop and see what questions have come, if there are hands raised and comments in the chat, and then I'll resume again. As I said, I'll move a little fast this time. One reason is, of course, trying to finish it, but also because many of these things have been covered earlier. Before I start though, let me tell you this, something interesting. Once I was walking in the grasslands of Africa, vast grassland, shrubs and grasses all around, little dry, and once in a long distance here and there some trees. And I was walking and I was all alone, and then at a distance I saw something moving towards me. As I looked closely, and I was beginning to feel tense, what is it? And it was a lion. So actually this big lion, and was rushing towards me. I was of course shocked, and I was desperately looking around what to do, and I saw a tree in nearby, and I ran towards it, and the lion was gaining upon me. It was this big lion with a huge mane and all, and I climbed the tree, and lions also can climb the tree. They are big cats. So as I was climbing the tree, I saw behind, and the lion was climbing the tree with his huge face and big mouth, and I was so terrified. After a while, I couldn't climb anymore, and the lion was gaining on me. There's nothing I could do. I was looking back and terrified and very tense, and I automatically started calling on Sri Ramakrishna. I just started chanting Jai Ramakrishna, Jai Ramakrishna, Jai Ramakrishna, and I woke up. Of course, it was a dream. I woke up. Now, after I woke up, I thought, wow, this is what Gaudapada is talking about. Not only that dream, but this world which we inhabit, this waking world, Gaudapada is trying to make the case it's like that. Neither the plains, the place where you were, the space, the plains of Africa, that time, whatever it was, nor the objects, tree, lion, not even the body which I saw in the dream, none of them were anything real. What was real there? The only thing that was real was the dreamer's mind, the mind which produced that dream. That was the only real thing. And very interesting, when the lion of samsara chases us, we first try some worldly means of escaping it, running away, catching it, climbing the tree. And when every worldly means fails, we are helpless. There is disease and death and terror and failure, and there is no way of being rescued. We start calling on Bhagavan. Now at that moment, if you are really lucky like I was, then Bhagavan will bless you, and the blessings will be you will snap out of the dream of samsara. The whole problem will be solved at one blow. If you are not all that lucky, if you have some good karma, Bhagavan will still bless you and save you from that lion. The dream will continue. Maybe the hunter will shoot the lion, or lion will think this fellow is too skinny to eat and I'll go away. And so the dream of samsara will continue, but you will be saved temporarily. Death and disease and those things will keep coming. But really good karma or real grace of God is which takes you out of the dream of samsara, enlightenment, God realization. Also, another thing you notice is that in that dream, I did not sit down and start taking, now lion is chasing me, now let me bring out my Mandukya Karika and see what it says. And let me do Panchakosha Vichara, Drigdrishya Viveka or Avasthatraya, the analysis of 3 states. No, I desperately called on God. And the Advaitic knowledge, or at least the dream to waking up, that was given by the grace of God. I snapped out just simply not by my own effort, but by the grace of God. This is a great truth. Even if we don't go, we read all these things, but by deep devotion and prayer and holding on to God alone, that Advaitic realization God gives. Sri Ramakrishna said, my divine mother has shown me everything, what is there in Vedanta. So that is a clue, a very important message for us. Directly by devotion also, this knowledge can come. I know in some cases where this has actually come. They have got Advaitic realization by doing mantra japa and devotion to Ishta Devata. Okay, with this background, let us go on. Verse number 29. Now, so what's going to happen? A restatement of Advaita Vedanta teachings with the help of these examples. Ajatam jayate yasmat ajati prakritastataha prakriteranyatha bhavo na kathanchit bhavishyati. Translation. That birthless thing, that is according to these other philosophers, that thing only takes birth. Birthlessness is its very nature. So the change of this nature is not possible in any way whatsoever. That's verse number 28. Brahman is changeless. So Brahman cannot be a cause of the universe. See, to be a cause you have to change. The seed has to germinate. So seed has to change in order to become a plant. The milk has to curdle to become curd. So the cause changes into effect. If Brahman cannot change, then Brahman cannot produce any effect. Not only that, in that case Brahman cannot be a cause. So Brahman is neither a cause nor an effect. Karya Karana Vilakshana Brahma. Vilakshana means separate. The Sanskrit term meaning other than. Brahman or Turiyam is apart from Karya Karana. In the context paradigm of the Mandukya, what is Karya? Effect? The waking and the dream states. Waking and dreaming are effect, and the deep sleep state, Sushupti, is cause. But what is Turiya? Neither effect nor cause. And you say, so what? You are that Turiyam. You are neither an effect nor the cause. We think we are Jiva, effect, and God is the cause. You are neither the Jiva nor the Ishvara, you are the reality behind Ishvara and Jiva, Turiyam. Nothing changes its nature. Its essential nature is not changed. So consciousness does not change its essential nature, it always remains the unchanging consciousness. Then number 30. So this is the speed at which I will proceed. Number 30. Anaderantavatvam cha samsarasya nasetsyati anantata chadimato mokshasya na bhavishyati. Translation. If world, samsara, is beginningless, its termination will not be achieved, and there will be no eternality for liberation that has a beginning. What does it mean? Using the example, you will see. That the meaning of this verse. If samsara is beginningless, where does this question comes, beginningless samsara? Remember, we discussed about karma theory. Which is earlier, body is earlier or karma is earlier? Is there a chain of body and karma? Is it a beginningless chain? And so on, all these things we discussed some time ago, few classes ago. So samsara is beginningless. This is how it is actually taught in Vedanta. So as usual, Gaudapada is going to smash everything. If samsara is beginningless, then it will not have any end. That generally things which are eternal, that means beginningless, are also endless. That which does not have an adi, beginning, also does not have an anta. So anadi is also usually ananta. But suppose so if there is no end to samsara, what is the problem? Problem will be there is no moksha, there is no freedom, there is no point to having Mandukya classes if samsara is beginningless. Now, if somebody says, yeah, samsara is beginningless, but it has an end. By the grace of God, like you woke up from that dream, by the grace of God, we will wake up from this nightmare of samsara, then what will be the problem? The problem will be, then your moksha, by the grace of God I will get moksha. Then moksha will have a beginning. Till now there was samsara, now there will be moksha. Do you remember this argument came earlier actually? So up to now there was samsara, now by my sadhana, by the grace of God, I have got moksha. Samsara is finished, moksha has started. If moksha has started, you are in trouble. That which starts will end. That which is born will surely die. Bhagavan Krishna has said, Jatasya hi dhruvo mrityu. That which is born, death is certain of that. If moksha is born, if moksha starts at one point, in that case moksha will also come to an end. And what use is that moksha? Temporary moksha? No good. So, samsara has neither, samsara is not real. It's not a real samsara. Think about the example. When I woke up from that dream, nightmare, what did I realize? Did I realize until now I was living in Africa and I was being chased by a lion. Now by some magic God has rescued me and put me in New York in Vedanta society on the bed. Did I realize that from now on I am free of the lion? No. I realized I was never in Africa, never chased by a lion, though it looked like that. It looked very much like that. At that point on the tree I was climbing and lion was climbing after me. If you told me all this is an appearance, I would not listen to you. But it looked real to me, but at that time also it was not real. When it looked real, felt real, I was also really scared. At that time it was not real. It was an appearance. So moksha was always there. I was always free of that lion. I was in bed safely in Vedanta Society in New York all the time. Similarly, Turiya is always free. It does not get moksha. So what is moksha? It is the removing of the misconception. It is enlightenment. What is enlightenment? It is removing of the misconception that we are bound. So removing of the misconception of bondage is moksha. And that moksha is always there. Bondage, never there. So that's why they say, Advaita Vedanta, it removes the bondage which was never there. And what does it give you? It gives you the moksha which you always had. So that is Advaita Vedanta. Nivrittasya nivritti, praptasya prapti. Nivritta means which is always removed or always destroyed, always negated. That which has always been negated is negated by Vedanta. Praptasya prapti means that which you already had, now you are given that by Vedanta. But the whole play is one of ignorance and knowledge, of realizing it and not realizing it. Now let's go to verse number 31. Adau ante chayannasti vartamanepi tattatha vitathai sadrisha santo avitatha iva lakshita. That which does not exist in the beginning and the end, it does not exist in the middle. Though these things are similar to the unreal, they seem to be real. This verse is well known. It is from the second chapter, 6th verse of second chapter, just repeated here. So, samsara is unreal even if it is experienced. Again, look back at the example. The lion, which was not there earlier, and after waking up also is not there. But when I was seeing it, it seemed very real. Though unreal, it seems very real. Samsara, though unreal, it seems very real. Adau ante cha yad nasti, that which is not there at the beginning, that which is not there at the end. Our normal way of, our ordinary way of understanding is, yes, we know people are born, before birth they are not there, at least we don't see them. People die and after death they are not there, so at least we don't see them, they may be there. But in between we are sure they exist. After birth and before death they do exist. All the things which are produced, all the gadgets and places and things like this, before their existence, before their production they were not there, after their destruction they will not be there, but during their, in between production and destruction, they do exist. This idea alone brings up samsara. We think that there is a real creation and a real destruction. This is what Gaudapada is arguing against. He says, when the pot has been created from the clay. Actually, no pot has been created. You know this example very well. When we investigate the pot, before the pot was made, it was clay. But during the existence of the pot, when we investigate it, we find it is clay only. It has a name and a function and a use, nama rupa vyavahara, but the substance is clay only. It was clay, continues to be clay, and when the pot is broken, what remains? Clay only. So, the pot which was not there before its creation, it was not there after its destruction. What Gaudapada is saying, in between also, when it seems to be there, it's not really there. The lion which you did not see before going to bed yesterday, the lion which you did not see after waking up from that nightmare, in that nightmare also that lion which you were seeing, was it really a lion? No. Was it really there? No. COVID-19, which was not there, at least to our knowledge, before December, which will not be there hopefully after some time. Right now, of course, it's terrible. Gaudapada will say no. Then what do you mean? What is here right now? About the dream we can understand what you are saying. The pot to some extent we can understand. What is here right now? I can understand how the clay is the reality, but pot is only a name, pot, a form like this, and a function. You can put water in it. But what about this world? This world is also name and forms and activities, functions, relationships. Then what is the reality? Like clay was the reality of the pot. Mind is the reality of that dream lion. What is the reality here? Consciousness. You, the consciousness, Turiya, is the only reality. Whatever you meet, whatever you encounter, good and bad, external in the world, internal in your mind, all of that is an appearance in consciousness, not different from consciousness, and nothing has happened there. Consciousness alone remains as consciousness. This is the great message of Gaudapada. Once if we realize this, in the midst of it also we will be safe. Let's go to verse number 32. So, this we have discussed earlier, 31 Adavante Chayannasti, that was in the second chapter, this has been discussed. 32. Saprayojanata tesham swapne vipratipadyate tasmad adyantavatvena mithyaiva khalu te smrita. The utility of those things is contradicted in a dream, therefore from the fact of their having a beginning and an end, they are rightly held to be unreal. So, these are arguments which we have seen in the second chapter. This argument that no, you can't say that these things are false, because they have utility. The world has utility. You feel thirsty, drink a glass of water, and then your thirst is quenched. So, the water is real. It is. You can't say it's like a mirage water. There is water, it appears to be in the mirage. When you go and see, there is no water there. That water cannot quench your thirst. The real water in my water bottle can quench my thirst. The people of the world, they are real, and your dream lion may be false. It cannot do anything to you except scare you. But go to Brooklyn Zoo, there the lions are there, and those are real lions. And if you try to mess around with them, they will bite you. So, that is not false at all. There is utility, there is actual action in this world. So, isn't it true? So, utility is an argument for reality. If things work, are they real? No. He says in dream it is contradicted. Utility was there in the dream. Water in the mirage, the water in the dream can quench your thirst in the dream. You drink that water, you feel quenched. When you wake up, you realize there was no water, it was a dream. Water in the real world, right here next to your bed, and in your dream you are dying of thirst. No water anywhere. The water is there in your bed, in your bedroom, near your bed, but you cannot drink that water. With water of the waking world, no use in dream. Water in the dream world, no use in the waking world, or it does not exist at all in the waking world. Utility, though it works. So, utility is no argument for reality. The pot remaining as clay gets new utility. When you give it a pot shape and a pot name, you can use it to store water or milk or whatever. So, new utility is there. So, similarly in the world, utility is there, activity goes on. This is called vyavahara, but the reality is not altered thereby. It does not become a real world thereby. In a movie, hero comes and drives a car, or the robbers are escaping in a car, and the police are chasing them in their car. Do the cars work or not? Yes, they work. That's why there is a car chase. The police car works and the robber's car works, and both are rushing along in the road. There is a car chase because the cars are working. But you will say, hey, hold on, that's a movie. There's really no car, no cops, no robbers. True, that's what Gaudapada is saying. In the movie, it is only a light and pictures and sound. Here, it is consciousness alone, in which again light, pictures and sound are appearing. And the great thing is, you are that consciousness. Moving on, verse number 33. Sarve dharma mrisha swapne kayasyantara nirdarshanat samvritesmin pradeshe vai bhutanam darshanam kutaha. All the entities are unreal in a dream, since they are seen within the body. How can there be the vision of creatures within this narrow space here? If you remember, these are arguments we saw in the second chapter. In second chapter, if you remember, Gaudapada used the example of a dream and tried to prove that the waking world is like the dream, and so just like the dream is false, the waking is also false. That was the argument. So to do that, first he had to prove that dream is false. What you see in the dream, we normally say, oh, it was a dream, just synonymous for falsity. But philosophically speaking, you have to be very clear that you have to demonstrate why, give reason. Why do you think a dream is false? So Gaudapada gave some reasons in the second chapter. He repeats them here. So for example, dream is false because the people and the places and the things you saw, when you wake up, you realize it was all in your head. But they can't be in your head. How can a big lion be in my head? It seems like a silly argument, but you have to give those arguments. Why is the dream false? You woke up. Now, why do you think that you are in New York and not in Africa? It could be that you fainted, you were in Africa and the lion was chasing you and you fainted, fell down from the tree. Now you are dreaming you are in New York. Why do you think so? That that was a false thing? So when you wake up here, you realize there is no lion, no Africa, nothing. One reason is, I dreamt it in my mind, within myself. Of course, a lion cannot exist within myself. No matter how big and empty my head is, not enough space for a lion to exist. So, samvrita desha, space is not compatible. And he will say next, time is not compatible. Therefore, dreams are false. Just like those false dreams, waking world is also false, but for a different reason. Waking world is false because, you remember the reasons, it is not apart from consciousness, that's why, it is in consciousness. Number 34. Na yuktam darshanam gatva kalasya niyamad gato pratibuddhascha vai sarva tasmin deshena vidyate. It is not proper to hold that dream objects are experienced by reaching them, since the requisite time involved in the journey is lacking. Moreover, nobody on waking up continues in the place of a dream. So simple. If I was really in Africa on a tree being chased by a lion, if that was real, then when I would wake up or whatever would happen, I would still be in Africa. But when I wake up, I see I'm in New York. And I see that I went to sleep 3 or 4 hours ago. So 3 or 4 hours is not enough for me to go to Africa and be chased by a lion. That's not enough. So clearly, time is incongruous, space is incongruous. Where you are dreaming, when you wake up, you don't wake up there. You wake up in a different place. The time which you saw for the dream, that is not enough for you to actually go and do those things. So for these reasons, dream is false compared to the waking. And then the next one. These are very similar to what we have been doing earlier in second chapter. 35. Mitradyai sahasang mantrya Sangbuddho na prapadyate grihitam chapi yat kinchit pratibuddho na pashyati. Again going on to prove the falsity of the dreams. Let me translate. Having conferred with friends and others in dream, one does not get confirmation when awake. And whatever one has acquired in a dream, one does not see it after waking up. So again, why is a dream false? Because suppose in your dream you meet a person who is your friend. You go to a friend's place and talk to the friend and come back. Next morning when you call the friend and he does not remember the conversation, he'd say, no, we didn't meet. So he does not confirm your meeting him. He says, sambuddho na prapadyate. What is, after waking up, your meeting with the friend is not confirmed. You are a lawyer and your client comes to you. Sammantra means for consultation. You are a lawyer and your client comes to you for consultation. And you spend a long time, 2 hours, giving him advice. And suddenly you wake up and you think it was a dream. But anyway, let me just bill him for 2 hours. You send the bill. Your client will be furious. That's the last time you will see that client. You say, I'm billing you for 2 hours. I gave you advice. What 2 hours? In my dream. I gave you advice in my dream for 2 hours. No, that won't work. Sammantriya mitra, with consulting with a friend, is not confirmed after you wake up. Similarly, another example he gives is whatever you get, grihitam chapi yat kinchit. Shankaracharya gives the example of getting gold, etc. Suppose you win a lottery. You win a lottery in the dream. You're delighted and you rush to the bank and deposit it. Next morning you wake up and you check your bank statement. Nothing. None of it is, not 1 cent it has increased. It might have decreased if some other bills are being deducted, but the lottery deposit is not there. So what you gain in a dream, you don't find in the waking state, and therefore it is not to be taken as real. Let's do one more, then I'll stop and take questions. These are all showing the falsity of the dream. You might say, I know that the dream is false. Why go through all this again? No, because once the falsity of the dream is established, then Gaudapada will show exactly like the dream, the waking state is also similar. Just as the dream is false, the waking is also false. False means appearance. Just as there was no Africa there was no tree, no terror, no lion, you wake up and understand that. Similarly, here also, the samsara is an appearance. Okay, there are issues which we'll take up. Let me do one more because it's related to this dream example. Swapne chavastuka kaya prithag anyasya darshanat yatha kaya tatha sarvam chitta drishyam avastukam. Moreover, the body seen in a dream is unsubstantial, since another body is seen to exist. As is the case with the body, so is everything perceived through consciousness and therefore unsubstantial. So here we come to the point. One point. Even your body which you saw in the dream is not real. Isn't it? The body which I saw, which I was running, chased by the lion, and the body which climbed the tree. Then I woke up. Why? Why is that body unreal? Gaudapada says, because another body is seen. Because you are switching bodies. When you wake up, the body in which you wake up is the body in New York, in the Vedanta Society, on the bed here, and you wake up. This body is not the one which you were dreaming of climbing a tree in Africa. That body was maybe sweating and dusty and had cuts and bruises, maybe half eaten also by the lion, but this body is fine. So there are two different bodies. Therefore, the body seen in the dream is also false. Now comes the essential argument. You say, all right, all this is fine, but what is your point? As is the case with the body, so everything perceived through consciousness is unreal. Yatha kaya tatha sarvam. Everything that you see here. Why? What's the logic? I don't get it. This is the crucial point. This is the point where you have to pay attention. One thing we agree, everything that was in the dream, Africa, tree, lion, body, events, activities, they were nothing other than the dreamer's mind. Not one thing was there actually apart from the dreamer's mind. True? We agree here. Similarly here he says, there is everything that we see here, not one thing is apart from consciousness. Everything is in consciousness. Just a minute, people are calling. Everything is within consciousness, not apart from consciousness, is in fact nothing other than consciousness. Therefore, not being a separate reality, though it appears to be a world and a body and a room and problems and all of that, can you justify any of them exists other than consciousness? No. That is what has been said so far. All that you see in the waking state, Jagrat Prapancha, all that you see in the dream state, Swapna Prapancha, and that only is there in the deep sleep in a potential form. All those are appearances and disappearances within consciousness. There is not the iota of proof or possibility of proof that they exist in any way apart from consciousness, apart from Turiya. So what? You are that Turiya. Not one thing here is separate from you. It is you alone appearing with all these names and forms. Just as I alone was appearing as lion, as the terrified Sarvapriyananda running, and as the Africa, as the tree, all of that, I alone was appearing. I admit it myself. Not one thing was outside me. Same thing is true here. Remember though, the dream is false with respect to the waking. But the waking is not false with respect to waking. Waking is false with respect to Turiya, with pure consciousness. As the person in the dream, I could not deny the dream, no matter how much Mandukya taught me. If you came to teach me Mandukya when the lion was chasing, I would tell the lion, hey, catch that fellow, eat that Mandukya fellow, don't eat me. There I did not feel that this will be of any use. Immediately I called to Sri Ramakrishna, save me. So that within the dream sphere, that it feels very real and is practically real. Only from waking, how did I make the dream false? By journey from not Africa to New York, from dream to waking. How will you make this waking false? By journey. How? What journey? From waking to Turiya. And that journey, how will it be accomplished? By aeroplane, spaceship, how? No, by knowledge only, Mandukya class. By that only. That will show you the Turiya. Okay. Let's take a break here and look at the question. I am sure there are a lot of outraged hands and comments on the chat. Let's see.
Pranam Maharaj.
Yes.
You mentioned a word called Advaitic realization. So is the realization from Advaita and is different from realization through the Bhakti path? I mean, one of the things that in a story that you talked about in one of your talks about Madhusudan Saraswati, he was in Navadvip and he was teaching. He was apparently he was a realized person in that Bhakti tradition, and then he became an Advaiti. And I'm feeling that he probably got new revelations or whatever. So my question is there different paths of realization?
A little difficult to say that. See, what would be Advaitic realization? Advaitic realization would be something like waking up from the dream of the nightmare of being chased by the lion to suddenly waking up here safe and sound in New York. Similarly, waking up from the nightmare of samsara to Turiya, where you are absolutely secure, there is absolutely no problem. Never has been a problem, that also you realize. Earlier also there was no problem. Somehow magically this nightmare of samsara was there, but it was actually not there also according to Gaudapada. So that would be the realization. The Bhakti realization would be that a certain individuality will be maintained and I become aware of the tremendous presence of God, of Ishvara. That Turiya alone, which I realize as my own self, there I still have a little difference. I remain as that Jiva, but I suddenly am aware of the gracious presence of Saguna Brahman. The Turiya alone appears as Saguna Brahman. So from Advaita perspective, that would be a preliminary. Gaudapada will talk about it. So what about Bhakti? He will talk in the next few verses. We'll leave it at that. Next.
Girish? Yes, thank you. Swamiji, I have a basic question on consciousness. I find myself going back to basic questions again and again. Western philosophers describe consciousness as sort of the feeling of what it is like. What is it like to be a bat? What does the taste of chocolate feel like? What does the smell of a rose feel like? is this what it is like type of consciousness different from the universal, divine, unconditioned consciousness, Brahman or Atman, or is it some sort of lesser type of consciousness? Is there, in other words, is there an everyday type of consciousness that deals with the reactions from the outward world, or is it identical to Brahman? And if it is identical, then Brahman is really an everyday experience, and that also seems like a difficult thing to grasp.
All
So
right.
my question is there two different kinds of consciousness?
Right.
Is
Let me.
there a difference perhaps between awareness and
True.
consciousness?
True. So answer is, short and sweet answer is yes and no. Yes,
I was
it's
afraid you'd say that.
no, but let me explain. It's actually very precise. I mean, it's nothing mystical, not even difficult to grasp. Yes, there are two different things they're talking about. The Western philosophers are talking about, philosophers of mind are talking about our present experience, what we are experiencing right now. So, seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching. So, like seeing a rose, all those. Like, what is it like to be a bat? Thomas Nagel, if from a bat's perspective, but nothing spiritual about it. The bat has a echolocation sense. What will it be like to experience that? So, our day-to-day experiences. What is this thing called consciousness? This is what Advaita Vedanta calls the pramata, knower. Consciousness lighting up the mind. Mind is thoughts, vrittis. So, consciousness lighting up the mind, through that lighting up the indriyas, the sense organs, and through that exploring the world. So, consciousness plus mind plus indriyas, that is your vritti, that is your pramata. Pramata means knower. Consciousness using the instruments of knowledge is called knower. Alright, so there are two different things. The other thing is pure consciousness, turiya, which is the witness of waking, dreaming, deep sleep, which is the ground of reality. Entire universe appears and disappears in it. So it seems very different. So that's the first answer. Yes, they are two different things. That second thing which we are talking about, the turiya, the Brahman, Western philosophy, neuroscience and all, they have absolutely no idea about it. Absolutely nothing. And that's why it leads to tremendous confusion. Sometimes they are talking about consciousness as such, sometimes they are talking about the mind, sometimes they are talking about senses. These differences are not very clear. Differences between perception, mind and consciousness itself. These are very clear when you come to Advaita, when you come to yoga philosophy, for example. The distinctions are very sharp, very clear and sharp. And they are well defined. The definitions are not at all clear in Western thought. Now, the second answer is no, they are not different. Where does this consciousness in the mind and in the senses come from? According to Advaita Vedanta, it is the same consciousness, same Brahman or Turiyam. The Brahman or Turiyam, pure consciousness, shining upon the mind, which is itself an appearance within Brahman, is called reflected consciousness. That reflected consciousness alone illumines the mind and the senses and all. So, this empirical consciousness or pramata is nothing apart from the Turiya. Just like a good example is sunlight and moonlight. So, the sun illumines the world in daytime, but in night time now, the moon shines upon, say, Manhattan. It illumines everything in Manhattan. So, you say, what wonderful moonlight. But we know this moonlight is nothing other than the sunlight. If there were no sun, there would be no moonlight either. So, for example, when the moon is hidden by the shadow of the earth, no moonlight. If the moon had its own light, it would keep on shining. No, it does not. It is only sunlight reflected from the moon which comes and illumines the earth at night. So, the moonlight is like our consciousness, is like the consciousness in the mind and in the senses, which is taken as consciousness alone by Western scientists or philosophers, and there is very good reason for that, because that's the most obvious thing to us. But just like at night, there is no sun to be seen. It's only our knowledge of astronomy which tells us that there is actually it is sunlight which is being reflected by the moon. But nobody can see the sun at night on the night side of the planet. So, in the same way, the pure consciousness is not visible here, is not evident here. Though every bit of consciousness we are seeing, like every bit of moonlight, is nothing other than sunlight. Similarly, just like the moon reflects sunlight onto the earth, the world, like the earth, is now illumined by the mind, but the mind is like the moon. In fact, in Vedanta, the symbol for the mind is the moon and the symbol for Atma is sun. So, sunlight, that means consciousness, is reflected or channeled through the mind and it appears to us our empirical ray. That is the same consciousness. And the proof of that is, as you said, Brahman then should be an everyday experience. If it's the same thing, though we don't say everything is lit up by sunlight at night, but the fact is everything is actually lit up by sunlight, astronomically speaking. Then everything that we are experiencing now is Brahman or consciousness. By Brahman's light or consciousness we are experiencing. True. That's why they say the highest realization, Kena Upanishad says, Pratibodha Veditam Matam Amritatvam hi vindate. When in every experience, which experience? Seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, talking, walking, thinking, loving, hating, fighting, in all experiences, one Brahman alone shines, and this is recognized. So that leads to, that is immortality. One wins immortality. That is Advaita Vedanta. Yeah. Good. Then who else is there?
Pranam Maharaj. I wanted to go back to our discussion on Advaita Vedanta and Buddhist schools. So first question, maybe I missed it, but I remember you mentioned that Gaudapada at some point will take on Vignavada, but did you also say that he'll take up Shunyavada?
No, he doesn't. He doesn't take up Shunyavada, no. Only in response to Vignavada. Shunyavada, Advaita has a strange relationship with Shunyavada. In some places, it is sidestepped, Shunyavada. In some places, dismissed as nihilism, which is unfair because Shunyavada is not nihilism really, as that nothing exists. They also do not say that nothing exists, Shunyavadis. Shunyam is taken in its very crude sense as nothing.
That brought me to the second question I had was, so when you contrast the Buddhist schools with Advaita Vedanta, right? Vignavada and Advaita Vedanta to me again felt very similar because both schools have made the big leap saying that consciousness is everything. It becomes a question now of mechanics, right? Whether it's changeless or whether it's streaming.
Correct.
Shunyavad versus Advaita Vedanta is quite fascinating because both of them are very extreme in their conclusions.
Yes.
One says God only is, and the other one says void only is, right?
I mean, that's a very simplistic way of putting it.
My understanding is simplistic, so I'm trying to speak from that perspective. So it's like there are two sides of a coin, right, or diametrically opposite. So it's like I was wondering because as you said, nihilism, is it why Buddhism became so widely popular in the rest of Asia and now in West? That's sort of the first question. And second was, would you recommend which Shunyavad 101 text would you recommend if you had to?
Okay.
It's a fascinating...
Very fascinating. Yeah, I've been fascinated by it for a long time. I've been reading about it for 20 years, and in fact, I was very happy to find when I went to Harvard last year that one of the courses being offered was by Professor Garfield, Indo-Tibetan Madhyamaka. Madhyamaka is the correct technical name for Shunyavada. So just as Vignavada is called Yogachara, so Shunyavada is called Madhyamaka. Madhyamaka Shunyavada. So there was a course, I did a whole course on the entire Indian literature on Shunyavada and the Tibetan literature on Shunyavada. So nearly 2000 years of Shunyavada. It was fascinating, which is why I hesitate to give any direct answer to it. Your first question was,
one was contrasting Vignavada and...
is a question of mechanics, you are saying?
Yes, that was the first one. Second was Shunyavad versus Advaita Vedanta was like one says God only is and the other one says, void. And it seems they are so diametrically opposite that it's very hard to reconcile. Either you're in this camp or you're in this camp, which might explain why Buddhism probably because it's godless sort of a philosophy that
Yeah.
appeals to a lot of people.
Right. So let me just say that the first one, Vignavada is, and the difference between Vignavada and Advaita seems to be only mechanics, because both are saying that consciousness is everything and everything is in consciousness. Yes and no, because as they say, the devil is in the details. So when you come to Vignavada from an Advaitic perspective, they are making a huge mistake. The mistake they are making is they are still unable to separate mind from consciousness. That is why they feel consciousness is flickering. It is the mind which is flickering on the screen of unchanging awareness. So there Advaita has a serious objection, and it's not a minor objection, because unless you do a thorough job of separating drishya and drig, seer and seen, you'll still be left with a mixture of consciousness and not consciousness, subject and object, and still the job will not be accomplished. Though it will become all internal then, but still it is mind and consciousness together. Now, nihilism, is it because of that? So you use two things. Is it because of the nihilistic approach it's become popular, or godless approach it's become popular? The two are different. Nihilistic means nothing exists. Neither God nor self, everything is void. But Shunyavada does not say that. That would be a useless position. It will be very easy to dismiss. But Shunyavada, Nagarjuna himself in the original text of Shunyavada, the Moola Madhyamaka Karika, there he clearly says, we are not saying that nothing exists. For example, something like the Atman, or this universe, for example, or God. What are you saying? What is Nagarjuna's position? Do you say it exists? We say no. We don't say that it exists. I say God. Does God exist? We don't say that it exists. So you are saying God does not exist. We don't say that it does not exist. And so God exists and does not exist. That's contradictory. We don't say that God exists and does not exist. So you are saying God neither exists nor does not exist. No, we are not even saying that. So Chatush Koti Vinirmukta Tattvam, the four logical alternatives are denied, and the reality is beyond the four possible conceptions of the human mind. So that's what Nagarjuna is trying to say. But what does that mean? Advaita, actually, it's not so difficult. If you hold on to it, you begin to see what they are trying to say. Even Vignanavada. But what Nagarjuna is trying to say has become an object of fascination for philosophers down till today, especially in the last 100 years or so. Advances in Western philosophy, a lot of Western philosophers have become fascinated, not so much with Shankara or with Vignanavada, but with Nagarjuna. So you are asking what is the original text? The original text, foundational text is Moola Madhyamaka Karika.
Not original text, Maharaj.
And 101.
101. Where should, if somebody wants to read,
I wish there was a good 101. I wish there was a good 101, but all that I have come across till today is deep and complicated, complex, controversial. Nagarjuna is not a philosopher who, see, Nagarjuna has been seen as a Buddhist. Of course he is a Buddhist. Some say that no, he is not a Buddhist. He is a nihilist. Some say that no, he is an absolutist, that he is actually talking about the Advaitic Brahman but pointing towards it negatively. Some say that he is a modern deconstructionist like Derrida. So, there are so many views of Nagarjuna. So, it is very slippery. I don't think there is a single 101 book. I can give you a list of books though. So, the Moola Madhyamaka Karika with its commentaries, the best translation I found till now is by, like, I have half a dozen translations of that and 3 or 4 commentaries on the Moola Madhyamaka Karika. There have been commentaries by, at least 2 big commentaries by Indian philosophers 1500, 1600 years ago, about 4 or 5 commentaries, big ones, by Tibetan commentators. So, Moola Madhyamaka Karika, that's the original text. Any number of books by modern Tibetan writers, I mean, they are English translators. Let me see, I have to think about it.
it's just like, is there a text that could somehow reconcile Advaita Vedanta?
Okay, that you want, yes. That you want, yes.
Completely different.
Write that down. By T.R.V. Murthy, Central Philosophy of Buddhism. It's a classic text. This was my first introduction to the problem of Shunyavada and Advaita. T.R.V. Murthy, Central Philosophy of Buddhism, highly regarded text, and also makes a lot of Tibetan Buddhists and Shunyavadis furious, because he says more or less both are pointing to the same reality, Advaita and okay. Let's take one more before we move on.
Yes, Poonamji.
Yeah, Swamiji, like the very fact that we have decided our goal is God realization is also done in the waking state. And in Gita also Bhagavan says Avyaktani Bhutani Vyaktamadhyani Bharata. So falsity of this state is difficult to comprehend.
Yes. But notice, what will be God realization? The God realization will be, first of all, the reality of God. I realize that God is real. I may have vision, I may feel the presence of God. Ultimately, what will it be? That everything that I see, inside and outside, all is pervaded by God. Ghat ghat mein leta Dasharat ka beta. The son of Dasharatha, Rama, is actually present in every entity in the world. My Gopala is present in every being of the world. Shiva Jnane Jiva Seva, Sri Ramakrishna said. All jivas are nothing other than Shiva. What does that mean? That which you thought was world, that which you thought was human being, man, woman, child, good and bad, all that is none other than Shiva or Rama or Krishna. That means what you thought of the world, the Jiva and Jagat, that is false. That is the falsity of the world. From a bhakti perspective, when you realize all is God and there is nothing other than God, if you realize that, that is what Gaudapada means by falsity. We will see now, it will come. Alright, let's move on. Number 37. Yes. Number 37. Grahanad jagaritavat tadhetu swapnaishyate tadhetutvattu tasyeva sajjagaritamishyate. Since a dream is experienced like a waking state, the former is held to be the result of the latter. In reality, however, waking state is admitted to be true for that dreamer alone, it being the cause of his dream. Okay, we are still in dream and waking state analysis. Number 37. So, what he is saying is, what did we do? Number 37, isn't it? Yes. So, what he is saying is, that the the dream state is an effect of the waking state. This is what we understand. You do not need Advaita for that. Any psychologist, therapist, psychoanalyst will say, what you dream about is an effect of your waking experiences. Things that we experience in the world with our senses, what we read about, what we think about, especially the things which impact us emotionally, we are affected by it. Those things come out in the dream, usually. So, he says, Jagarita tadhetu swapna ishyate. Whatever we experience in the waking world, that creates the vasanas, and through that vasanas, the dream world is created. And there is another similarity between the waking and the dreaming. In the dream world also, just like the waking world, in the waking world we have subject I and objects, and the objects are spread out in space and also continuous in time. The same thing is felt in the dream world. I am a subject experiencing an object, though the interesting thing is, though we experience subject, object, time, space, I am there, the space, vast African plain, and there is an object, the lion, and it is coming towards me, and time is going, I have to run, there is not much time, the lion will catch me. So, time, space, objects, all are there, just like waking world, in the dream world also. And because of this similarity, he says, it shows that just as the dream world is false, the waking world is also false. From their perspectives, from the waking state, from the dream state, dream is to be taken as real. Within the dream state, it is taken as real. Similarly, within the waking state, the waking objects and people and happenings are taken as real. From the perspective of the waking state, you cannot falsify the waking. From the perspective of dream state, you cannot falsify the dream. Only from the perspective of waking did I falsify the dream. When I woke up, I was able to falsify that Africa experience, lion experience. So, and similarly, only from the Turiya perspective, we can say that the waking and dream are both false. He showed the similarity of cause and effect here. He says, because of waking state, we are having these dream experiences, because the same experiences are reproduced in the dream. Not only that, the structure is same. There is time, there is space, there is subject object. Then number 38. Utpadasya prasiddhatvat ajam sarvam udahritam nacha bhutadabhutasya sambhavo asti kathanchana. Since origination is not well established, it is declared by the Upanishads, everything is birthless. Moreover, there is no origination in any way whatsoever of any non-existing thing from an existing one. All right. What is said here? Since the dream state is false, we all agree. Nobody denies that the dream state is false. State is false means the contents of the dream, what is experienced in the dream, that is not real. We all agree. Similarly, Gaudapada is trying to establish there is no fundamental difference between the dream state and the waking state. Both are appearances, and therefore waking state is also, status is similar, that is also not real. If they are not real, waking and dream are not real, then Brahman or Turiya cannot be a cause. It did not produce the objects of the dream state or of the waking state. If it is not a cause, then Turiya is beyond causality. That is what he is saying. Since causality is not well established, he says, Utpadasya aprasiddhatvat. Causality or origination is not well established. Therefore, it is said that the sarvam ajam, all that you see in the waking state, sarvam ajam, this is a favorite phrase of Gaudapada, all that we see in the waking state is not originated. We think it is all originated. Everybody, all of us, we were born, we have an origin, we have been created. Every item that we use has been produced. This is our common sense idea. The entire universe was created, Big Bang. All of that Gaudapada sweeps away and says none of this has been originated. No more than the lion in your dream, the body in your dream, or the tree or Africa in your dream, none of it. That Africa, was it really part of the world? Was the world in your dream produced by Big Bang? Was the lion born from lion father and lion mother? No. It was all an appearance in your mind. In the same way, this entire universe, he is not denying Big Bang, but what he is saying, even Big Bang will be an appearance in consciousness. All of this is an appearance in consciousness, sarvam ajam. Then what is it really speaking? Though it appears to be born and existing and dying, but really if it is nothing other than consciousness, then the only reality here is, and always was, is and will be consciousness or Brahman. And that thou art, you are that. Then number 39. Asad jagarite drishtva swapne pashyati tanmaya asat swapnepi drishtva cha pratibuddho na pashyati. Having seen some unreal thing in the waking state and being emotionally affected, one sees it in the dream also. Having seen some unreal thing in dream, one does not see it in the waking state. Just like my example of the lion, by seeing something in the waking state, it creates an impression on the mind. See, the question here was, you just said two contradictory things. You said that nothing in the dream state is real, it has not been produced. And then you said that the dream state is an effect product of the waking state. He said two things. The waking state produces the dream state. All the activities in the waking create an impression which produces things in the dream state. And you are also saying none of them have been produced. Sarvam ajam. Aren't these two contradictory? You just said waking produces dream, and now you say neither waking nor dream are produced. So he is making a subtle distinction here. He is saying the distinction is this: just because you see something and it feels real, feels tangible, does not mean it's real. The Africa you saw, the lion you saw, the tree you grabbed, and your terror you felt, did they not feel tangible? Yes. But was it real? No. It does not, this is the crucial point, it does not take a real experience, experience of a real thing to create an impression in the mind. One may see horror movie, a ghost in a horror movie, in the waking state, and then dream of a ghost. Now, what you saw in the waking state was not real, but it produced an effect in the dream state. That is also not real. What Gaudapada is arguing is, it does not take a reality to produce an effect. It does not take a real thing in the waking state to produce an impression in the dream state. You don't have to dream about things in the dream. That does not mean, though it was produced by the waking, that does not mean in the waking there are real ghosts. No. Somebody sees something by mistake. Somebody sees a snake, or like the ghost is a good example. Nightmare caused by something that you actually never did see. Jurassic Park. The child gets nightmare at night. Dinosaur is coming. Now, does that mean I saw the dinosaur was produced by something in the waking state, so in waking actually I saw a real dinosaur? No. False dinosaur seen in the waking state in the movie has produced a false dinosaur seen in the dream state similarly. Like lucid dreaming or VR, yeah, it goes on. Then let me go to 40. Number 40. Nastya sadhetukam asad, sadasad hetukam tatha, satcha sadhetukam nasti, sadhetukam asatkutaha. There is no unreal thing that has an unreality as its cause. There is no unreal thing that has reality as its cause. There is no existing thing, that means a real thing, which has another real thing as its cause. How can there be an unreal thing that is produced out of something real? You might say, what is he saying here? This is exactly what Gaudapada loves doing, but it's very simple actually. He is saying a real world cannot be produced from Brahman. There are 4 options. Asat cannot produce Asat. Asat means non-real. What does he mean by Asat? That which does not exist. So, what is producing what? Can a non-real thing produce a non-real thing? No. A non-real thing like the son of a barren woman, the classic examples in Sanskrit, or a flower in the sky. These things don't exist. Can they do something? Can they produce some action, some result, some item? No. That which does not exist, how can it do anything? How can it produce anything? So, from an unreal cause, unreal effect cannot be produced. That is one option ruled out. Second option, from an unreal cause, can a real effect be produced? Even more impossible. Suppose, unreal flower in the sky, flower in the kapushpas, flower in the sky, can it produce a real fruit? Of course not. Impossible. Unreal thing cannot do anything. Third, from a real cause, can a real effect be produced? So, this is how we understand causality in the world. Real cause is there and produces real effect. A real seed is there, produces real plant. Real God is there, produces real world, or real Big Bang is there, produces real universe. This is what we think. But this has already been ruled out again and again by the pot and clay example. The real clay does not produce a second thing called a real pot. The clay, if you take it as real, once a pot is produced, so-called produced, when you examine the pot, you see no second thing has been produced. If it's a second thing, countably second, then you can separate the clay 1 and the pot 2. No, you cannot. In the same way, from consciousness, you the awareness, try to separate anything, world, your most beloved person, your greatest enemy, even God, even Sri Ramakrishna when he is experiencing Mother Kali, Samadhi. Can that Mother Kali they exist apart from his consciousness? It's only in his awareness Mother Kali appears. If it was apart from his awareness, he could not have experienced. So, a real thing does not produce a real thing. No, that's also not possible. And the last one is absolutely impossible. Real thing produces an unreal thing. Unreal thing is never produced anyway, so there's no question of real thing producing unreal thing. What has he said here? Asat cannot produce Asat, Asat cannot produce Sat, Sat cannot produce Sat, and Sat cannot produce Asat. Basically what he is saying is, this world is an appearance. False world is experienced is the same thing as saying real world is never created. I will repeat that. No real world is experienced is equal to false world is experienced. No real snake is experienced is equal to a false snake is experienced. No real lion was seen by me. Then what was? I cannot deny I saw something. Then I have to admit what I saw was a false lion, false Africa, false tree, even false body of Sarvapriyananda. I saw it, but it was, if you have proved to me logically that what I saw in a dream cannot be true, therefore I have to admit it was not real Africa, not real lion, not real tree. It must be false. False experience of the false is equal to that it is the items which you are saying real things were not there at all. All right. Let me go to number 41. Almost done. I'll stop after one or two more. Viparyasad yatha jagrat achintyan bhutavat sprishet tatha swapne viparyasad dharmastatraiva pashyati. As someone, owing to lack of discrimination or what would I say, discernment, may in the waking state be in contact with unthinkable objects, fancying them to be real, so also in a dream one sees the objects in the dream alone, owing to want of discrimination. This is 41. So, in the waking state, we come, just like in the dream state, we come across entities which are not real and we take them to be real. So, in the dream state, a false lion created all the terror for me. Similarly, in the waking state, we also have examples of snake in the rope or a mirage, which are not real, yet we treat them as real for the time being, as long as we are in ignorance. The moment we realize what it is, it has no more effect on us. So, the whole point is bhutavat sprishet. Sprishet means come into contact with, relate with. How? Bhutavat, as if existing. If you treat the world and its problems and its terrors as if existing, like I treated that lion which was chasing me, then you will be in samsara. But when you realize these are appearances, then you will not treat, they will still keep on appearing. See, the difference is the moment I journeyed from dream to waking, the whole Africa lion, the whole thing disappeared. And I also realized it was never there. For an enlightened person, when you make the journey from the waking to the Turiya, it's not that the waking world will disappear and the new Turiya world will appear. No. This very appearance, you will realize the underlying reality is you, the consciousness. That is what will happen. Appearance will continue. Are there examples? Yes. The mirage or the water, you realize it's a mirage water. After that, when you look back, you see it's still water. It looks like water. Swami Vivekananda had an example, I had that experience in the deserts of Rajputana. He looked back and he saw water in the desert. He came close to drink it, he saw it was a mirage. Then he started walking again, looked back, again it looked like water. So, the appearance of samsara will continue. Blue sky, go to class, read physics and optics, you will realize sky is not blue. After that, you look out from the window and look at the sky, looks blue. It will continue to look blue. It will continue to look as if sun is going around the earth, but you know that is not true. So, knowledge will show you, but appearance of the world will continue. As long as you have eyes, you will see form, ears, you will hear sound, but you will realize what you hear, see, smell, taste, touch is nothing other than the Brahman, the one awareness which you are. So, I have written here in my notes, fiction or error is dangerous if bhutavad sprishet, if you come into contact with them as if they are real. One more. I am trying your patience. Yeah, so I was really moving fast today. Let me do one more. Okay, this is an important one. Alert, you might be feeling tired of, but now a new topic is coming up. So, what about duality? What about bhakti? What about religious life? All of these things which we are doing. Gaudapada seems to be dismissive. So, Gaudapada here softens a little. He says it is all right. He will say now. Upalambhat samacharad astitva vastu vadinam jatistu deshita buddhair ajatetra satam sada. Instruction about creation has been imparted by the wise for the sake of those who, from the facts of experience and adequate behavior, vouch for the existence of substantiality and who are ever afraid of the birthless entity. The question here is, all of your Vedanta, your own Advaita Vedanta, till now you have been talking about the creation of the world. What is Brahman? Brahman is that which creates the world, in which world exists, into which it is dissolved. Brahma Sutra number 2, Janmadyasya yataha asya jagata janma sthiti bhanga yasmat tad brahma. Your very definition of Brahman is that from which the universe is born, in which it exists, into which it disappears, that is Brahman. Upanishads speak about the world emerging from Brahman, like the web of a spider emerging from a spider. From Atma, tasmad etasmad atmana akasha sambhuta. From this very Atman, Akasha emerged, from Akasha of air, and air from fire water, from water the earth. All these things are there. 5 elements were created by God, and so on and so forth. So, your own Vedanta has been talking about this. Why? You are not denying the whole thing, that there is no creation at all. He says, for little children who are scared, trasatam, he says. He says, Ajate trasatam sada, those who are terrified of ajata. His favorite philosophy, ajata, non-origination. There are those who are terrified of ajata. Why? They feel that they will lose everything. At least with God, world is still there, good and bad. Now I have a God to protect me. It will be a nice world now. God is on my side. Ishvara is there. So, dualistic religion is still acceptable. But this non-dualism is terrifying. You are making the world an appearance. You are making me an appearance. What is remaining then? It's like a void. Whom will I love? Where will I have relationships? Even the enemy is not there. That also I'll be so lonely. Neither friend nor enemy, husband, wife, father, mother, children, grandchildren, all of them disappear into one awareness, featureless. Trasatam. So, Narendranath, when Sri Ramakrishna touched him for the first time in his visit to Sri Ramakrishna, the second visit, he saw the world disappearing into a shining void. He himself is disappearing, falling apart. And he shouted, "Wait, what are you doing? I have parents at home." And Sri Ramakrishna laughed and he said, "All right, let it be. It will happen in its own course." So, even Narendranath was scared. And a lesser vision was shown to Krishna by Krishna to Arjuna in the 11th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. The vision of the cosmic form, Vishwarupa, which is the Virat, not even the Nirguna Brahman. That of course can't be shown, has to be realized. The cosmic form, that itself terrified Arjuna. He said, every hair on my body is standing on end, and he prayed, "Take it away, I don't want this." So, terror. These people, they vouch for the reality of the world. Why? Upalambhat, because it is perceived. I see it, I hear it, I smell it, I taste it, I touch it. And then he says samachara, because of orderliness, law and behavior. Bill here often tells me, gravity waves have been discovered, Swami. There is so much law and orderliness in this universe. Deep investigation shows deep structure of the universe. That's what he meant by gravity waves being discovered. How can all of this be an appearance? He says here, Gaudapada, samacharat, because of uniformity of experience. Another secondary meaning is all our, Shankaracharya explains, the varnashrama dharma, all that we follow here, my duties as my caste, as husband, wife, as Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, as Brahmachari, Grihastha, Sannyasi, Vanaprasthi, all of this arrangement of religion, morality, spiritual practice even, all of this depends on the world being real and differences being there. So what does, he says, buddhi, by the wise. Who are the wise according to him? Shankaracharya explains, those who are Advaitins. They have given a temporary teaching of duality. There is God. You say, oh, thank God. There is God. There is God. There is a world. You are there just as you perceive it. Please worship God. Have devotion on God. Then what will happen? God will lead you to enlightenment. He comes in the next verse. I'll mention that and stop. Number 43. Adhyate trasatam tesham upalambhad viyanti ye jati dosha nasetsyanti doshopyalpo bhavishyati. For those who are terrified of the ajata, of the unborn, they deviate from the true path, that means Advaita, by relying on their experience of duality. The faults arising from acceptance of creation will not bear fruit, and the fault too will be insignificant. Very important point. He puts it in a dry philosophical language. What he is saying here, suppose you insist, no, 2 reasons, the world is real, because I see it, tangibility. Upalambha means experienced. It is experienced in this way, so it must exist. We already know it can't be true. The lion and Africa and all was not true. Utility is not an argument of reality. Externality is not an argument for reality. Intersubjective experience is not an argument for reality. Sense perception is not an argument for reality. Our dreams and our errors in the world all are as testimony to that. In every case they fail. But we still say, no, that is too much. I see it, therefore it must be real. It is Africa, it is a tree, and a lion is chasing me. This is true, no matter what you say. In that case, he says, accept it as true. Go ahead. But won't this be false? You are according to your Advaita Vedanta? All this you taught so long? Yes, it will be false. It is a deviation from the true path. He means from the path of Advaita Vedanta. What is the word he used? Viyantiye, arguing for a false position. You are arguing for a false position. But he says, Jati dosha na setsyanti. Jati here does not mean caste. Jati means origination. The defect or the harm from accepting a real origination, which means accepting a real universe, that will not come to you. And the fault is also, he says, alpa dosha. It's a very small fault that you are committing a fault, but you are still committing a very small fault. What you are taking up is not real, but it's the error you are making is small. Why? Because the moment you catch hold of God, that's what you are aiming at, dualistic devotion, that's his point. Moment you catch hold of God, you are actually catching hold of the reality of Turiya, only with a name and form as an object. So the name and form is ultimately not to be accepted by Gaudapada, but it is the Turiya alone you are worshipping. So dualistic religion, here Gaudapada opens the door. The masters of non-duality have taught dualistic religion, have given their stamp of approval on dualistic religion provisionally, secondarily, to help us. And he assures us that there is no harm in accepting dualistic religion. Even logically you are deviating from non-duality. Yes, you are deviating from non-duality, but the harm of deviating from the truth will not come to you. He says it will not give birth to its results. That means harm will not come. And he says the deviation is very small. So that's, you might find it, dualists will find it very condescending on the part of Gaudapada. So you are scared, that's why, all right, I am giving you a concession, and the concession is false, but it will not harm you and it will bring you eventually to the truth. Okay, I am done for today. Let's quickly go through, although we have gone out of time. Now, if there are people who are busy and you have to go, I understand, so you can leave, but I will still deal with a few questions, because before the questions disappear, This is a very important topic. It's a rehearsal or a repetition of what Gaudapada has been pushing towards. Let's see. Shashank? Shashank?
Abhijit, are you there?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, Pranam Swamiji.
Namaskar.
So I had a question which was very related to the verse 42, which is, my question was, where is Ajatavada coming up in Upanishads and Brahma Sutras of the Gita?
Here. Mandukya. Mandukya is an Upanishad.
But where does it come up in the Mandukya Upanishad, the Ajatavada?
This is an implication.
No,
See, all
this is Gaudapada's commentary on it. That is
True.
his interpretation.
True, but a vada is always a development by philosophers who come afterwards. If I ask you, where does Dvaitavada come up in the Upanishads or Gita? Where does Advaitavada come up in Upanishads or Gita? Nowhere. Vada means a philosophy, a systematization, a system. So the system comes afterwards. If you want to understand Mandukya, this is the interpretation. You are free to argue against it. It won't work. It is Turiya which is the reality, because on the lines of the Mandukya itself, the seventh mantra will show you that there is only one reality and it is non-dual, Advayam, Advaitam. You remember? Prapanchopashamam, Shantam, Shivam, Advaitam. If it is non-dual, then what is all this duality? You cannot deny you are experiencing it. Nobody can deny that we are experiencing duality, multiplicity. Here we are, right now. So much multiplicity. But if non-duality is correct, then what we are experiencing must be an appearance.
Okay, so the logic is that the Upanishads are talking about Advaitam again and again, and if Advaitam has to hold, it has to go through the Ajatavada.
What Gaudapada is driving towards is it's a sort of irresistible, irrevocable logic. If duality is false, Advaita directly implies that duality is false.
Yes.
Brahma Satyam Jagat Mithya, Jiva Brahma Evanapara. But then what is Mithya? Gaudapada will not let you escape. What is Mithya? Is the Mithya thing, so already we have admitted real thing has not been produced by Brahman. No real thing has been produced by Brahman.
Because
so all
of
that we,
non-duality.
yeah, because of non-duality. So all that we see is appearance. Now you can see how if you follow that up, you will end up irrevocably in Ajatavada.
I see.
That falsity, has the false thing been produced? Was that lion ever born? Was that Africa I saw, was it ever created by the world, in the world? Was that world ever created in Big Bang? No, none of that is true, ultimately.
So if Advaita has to hold, then Ajatavada has to be there, because Ajatavada implies Advaita.
Ajatavada implies Advaita. That's why the third chapter, you see the four key words, very interesting. Ajata, non-origination. Asparsha, non-touch. Advaita, non-duality. And Amani Bhava, no mind. And they are all connected.
Yeah. Thank you.
Sushma ji, you had a question on the chat and you also raised your hand.
Thank you. Swamiji, I was just feeling that I as Sushma, if I see myself as a wave or as a bubble of the ocean, which is a consciousness, and then if I know I'm the consciousness, but there are so many other waves and other expressions of the consciousness, meaning other jivas, so-called reality that we see. So does it mean that, continuously there are these expressions in the universe that come up, the nama rupa, who then continuously need to sort of have that curtain taken away and know that they are the consciousness?
That is true. That is the way the whole game of life is being played. But once you realize it, he will say, once one realizes it, there is no going back. Once you see it, you cannot unsee it. You will always see yourself as this consciousness in which all these waves of the universe and other jivas are rising and falling. Yeah.
But then, Swamiji, that means this this knowing yourself and understanding that you are with the universe. So, like, that expression is gone, but that means then it's a continuous moment that will continue with different
True, but logically speaking, when you are saying continuous movement, you are in your mind, there is a continuously moving ocean. In your mind, it's there. But Gaudapada will ask, is there continuous movement? Is there actually movement also? Is that movement any different from that consciousness? No. If actually something has happened, then you need an explanation why it happened. But is actually ultimately from, see, one good way of understanding Gaudapada is always to regard it from the Turiya point of view, from Brahman point of view. What Gaudapada is always speaking from Brahman point of view, consistently. So therefore, from Brahman point of view, has anything happened? Has a jiva come actually? No. It's only from our perspective, jivas are coming, struggling for enlightenment, getting realized, and so on and so forth. So another little jiva has come. All right, next.
With Swamiji, I think you are right.
Yeah, true. Hold on to that. We will see again. Tomorrow we'll discuss this. This topic will continue tomorrow. One more, let's take it.
Arjun?
Yeah, Maharaj, Pranam. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. So in your dream example, the one which was climbing the tree, let's say it's the dream person, is not you. The one who is sleeping and
yet it is not separate from me. It cannot exist without me.
Yeah. But let's consider the dream person is like jiva.
Yeah.
In that case, it's not that the jiva wakes up.
It is true, jiva wakes up. Why? Isn't it true?
No, the person who's sleeping and dreaming wakes up.
It is true, but the jiva is not separate from that. See, the jiva, you have to remember in the Mandukya system. In the Mandukya system, what is the jiva? Waker, dreamer, deep sleeper. And the jiva journeys continuously between these three. It is the jiva who is awake, you are the jiva who is awake, you are the jiva as a dream person, and you are the jiva in deep sleep. And you keep journeying between these stages.
No, but in your example, that person who was climbing is not even actually there.
Not even actually there, and yet appears.
Jiva in that case is not even actually there.
But appearance is there. Appearance, something.
Appearance is there.
Yes.
But it's not the jiva who wakes up. It's the person who's sleeping and dreaming who actually wakes up.
Who is the person who's sleeping and dreaming? The jiva. Isn't it? Who is the person who's sleeping and dreaming?
Take the dream example.
Yeah. I, who am the waker, I had fallen asleep and then I was the dreamer. I woke up, I came back into my waking state. But in the dream state, it's like, suppose you are playing a virtual reality game in that you are walking around in a place and you have what is called an avatar there. Yeah. Now that avatar is not you, and yet for the time being you are fully identified with it. You control its actions and all the activities which are going on. So that conscious.
But Maharaj, what I am saying is that the person who was climbing the tree, he didn't wake up.
In one sense,
who was sleeping.
Yeah, I who was sleeping, I woke up. But that person who was climbing the tree is none other than me. See, suppose there was another person. Suppose there is a lion. If you say that lion did not wake up, correct. But if you say that the person who was climbing the tree did not wake up, it's both true and false. That person does not exist at all. And yet, because I was fully immersed in that person and had forgotten my sleeping, that I am sleeping on the bed. So, when I woke up, you can say that person woke up into his real nature as the sleeper.
Maharaj, then you can say the lion also woke up?
No, you cannot say. Can you see the big difference between the lion and you yourself? You are the jiva who is experiencing the world, including the lion. But you are not internally identified with the lion. It's an object of your experience. All the objects of your experience, including tree, lion and the world, disappear. And that which you are awakened, you are identified with, that tree climber, that you suddenly realize, no, I am not the tree climber. I am the one sleeping in that bed. I am sitting in the bed. That was your realization. That's why it is said in this way, Brahma Satyam Jagat Mithya Jiva Brahmaiva Napara. It does not say Brahman is real, world is false, Jiva is also false, Brahman wakes up. No. It is the Brahman is the reality, the world is false, and the Jiva is none other than Brahman. Otherwise, what will happen is, in ultimate realization, when you wake from the Turiya from the waking state to the Turiya, that's the whole point of this. Then you will say that Turiya woke up, but Arjun did not wake up. No, that Turiya which thought it was Arjun now realizes it's Turiya. That's it.
But Arjun was never there in that case. I mean, if we take this as unreal.
But unreal means there are two kinds of unreal. One is the son of a barren woman who has never been there. See, never there, never experienced.
No, it's like I have experienced Arjun, but Arjun is not really there actually.
You have experienced Arjun, but Arjun is not really there. What is really there?
I am there.
What is that I? Turiya. As Brahman, correct. So, as Brahman, you are really there. Arjun is not a second reality, but Arjun is definitely your appearance. That you cannot deny, you are experiencing it.
But
now.
What I am trying to say is everything is my appearance.
Yes, but in all that everything, there is one with which you identify internally. That is called the Jiva. And that the Jiva alone is the person who is struggling. Jiva alone wants to come to Vedanta class. Jiva alone wants to realize itself as Turiya. So, the Jiva must be isolated from everything else because it is the Jiva's project. Yeah. All right. We have really gone over time. So, what we will do now is that we will take this up tomorrow because we have continuous classes, no problem, keep it in mind, we will take it up tomorrow. All right. So, there were questions. Rodrigo has some good questions, please hold on to them. Can you save those questions and ask me tomorrow because this chat will disappear tomorrow. All right. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu. Take care. Instead of a weekly gap, we'll have only 24-hour gap. We'll see you very soon tomorrow. All right. Take care. Jai Ram Krishna. Jai Ram Krishna.